Listen to me carefully, because this is where so many people get stuck in life. A broken heart doesn't mean a broken future. Yes, I know the pain is real. I know the betrayal cut deep. I know the rejection stung so badly that you thought you would never recover. But hear me today. Your broken heart is not the end of your story. It is the setup for your testimony. Pain will not be your prison if you refuse to let it. The enemy whispers that because your heart was shattered, your destiny is finished. But the devil is a liar. Brokenness may describe your current condition, but it does not define your final destination. Let me put it this way. If your heart was glass and it shattered, God is not in the business of just gluing pieces back together. No, He is in the business of creating something entirely new, something stronger, something more beautiful. Don't believe for a second that your wounds mean you are disqualified. Sometimes it is the wound that makes you ready for the mission. Sometimes it is the crack that allows God's light to shine through your life. A broken heart does not cancel your calling. In fact, it often confirms it. I want you to catch this hook. Your past pain is not your permanent label. Some of you are living under names the world gave you. Abandoned, unworthy, unloved, not enough. And every time you look in the mirror, you don't see yourself, you see the label. But your pain does not have the authority to rename you. God has already called you, chosen, redeemed, fearfully and wonderfully made. The heartbreak may have tried to define you, but God has already designed you. Which voice will you believe? Some of you are carrying heartbreak like a badge of honor. You rehearse the story of who left you, who betrayed you, who failed you. But while you keep reliving it, your future is standing at the door waiting for you to let go. Your destiny doesn't live in yesterday, it lives in tomorrow. The danger of holding onto a broken heart is that it tricks you into living in rewind while God is calling you into fast forward. You cannot step into your future while clutching fragments of your past. Here's another hook for you. The place of your deepest pain can become the platform of your greatest power. What broke you can also build you. That failed relationship, it taught you what love is not. That rejection, it prepared you to stop begging for seats at tables you were never meant to sit at. That betrayal, it sharpened your discernment so you will never again confuse a snake for a friend. The heartbreak may have taken your tears, but it can also birth your wisdom if you let it. I need you to hear this truth. Healing is not pretending you were never hurt. Healing is choosing to rise again even though you were hurt. It is standing back up when everything in you wants to stay on the ground. The broken heart may slow you down for a season, but it cannot stop you unless you hand it the keys to your future. And let me remind you, no storm lasts forever. The rain may fall, but the sun is on schedule. Your night may be dark, but morning is guaranteed. Pain has an expiration date. Hope does not. Don't miss this. Some of the strongest people you will ever meet are those who had their hearts broken and still chose to love again. Some of the most powerful leaders once felt like failures. Some of the most radiant souls once sat in the ashes of despair, but they refused to let their heartbreak dictate their destiny. That's why you can't quit now. Your story is not finished. What looks like an ending is simply a transition. You don't stop at brokenness. You pass through it on the way to wholeness. Let me drop a question in your spirit. What if your broken heart is the very thing that God will use to reach someone else? What if the pain you went through becomes the testimony that lifts another person out of despair? What if the tears you cried in the dark become the light that guides someone else to hope? You thought your heartbreak was wasted, but with God nothing is wasted. Every tear has purpose. Every scar has meaning. Every season of pain can be turned into a season of power. The world will tell you that a broken heart is the end of love, the end of trust, the end of hope. But I'm here to tell you it's not the end, it's the beginning. It's the breaking of the shell that allows new growth to emerge. It's the cracking of the seed that allows roots to take hold. Sometimes your heart has to break in order for your soul to expand. Don't confuse breaking with burying. Breaking is not the end. It's the start of transformation. And let me say this, don't be afraid of your scars. Scars are not signs of defeat. Scars are evidence that you survived what was designed to kill you. A healed scar is proof that God's grace was greater than the wound. The heartbreak didn't take you out. You are still here, breathing, standing, fighting. That alone is proof that your future is bigger than your pain. So if you hear nothing else today, hear this. A broken heart doesn't mean a broken future. You are not disqualified. You are not discarded. You are not done. What broke you will not bury you. What hurt you will not halt you. And what shattered your heart will not shatter your destiny. This is not the end. It's the beginning of the next chapter. The pen is still in God's hand, and He is not finished writing your story. Forgiveness is not easy, and I won't pretend it is. But just because it isn't easy does not mean it isn't necessary. Too many people are walking around today with invisible chains wrapped around their hearts, chains of resentment, chains of bitterness, chains of revenge. They smile in public, but inside they are prisoners to the pain of what someone else did to them. And here's the tragedy. The person who hurt them has already moved on, but they remain shackled to a wound that continues to bleed. That is why forgiveness is not optional. It is essential. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks your freedom. Catch this. Unforgiveness does not punish your enemy. It poisons your soul. Every time you replay the offense, every time you rehearse the betrayal, every time you meditate on the wound, you are drinking poison and hoping it kills the other person. But all it does is kill you slowly. Your peace evaporates, your joy fades. Your vision becomes clouded, and before you know it, your soul is suffocating under the weight of something that was never meant for you to carry. You think holding on to that bitterness gives you power, but let me tell you the truth. It is not power, it is prison. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is not weakness. Forgiveness is warfare. It is declaring to the enemy, you will not hold me hostage any longer. You will not use my pain to control me. You will not bury me under resentment. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was okay. Forgiveness is saying what you did hurt me, but it will not define me. That is power. That is freedom. Let me give you a hook. When you refuse to forgive, you chain yourself to the very moment you are trying to escape. You trap yourself in the same room with the offense, reliving it over and over again while your destiny waits outside the door. Forgiveness is the key that turns the lock, swings the door open, and invites you to step into life again. Until you forgive, you're not punishing them, you're punishing you. Some of you are carrying grudges that have been passed down like family heirlooms. You are still angry at what a parent said decades ago. You are still bitter about the betrayal of a friend from years past. But every day you clutch that grudge, you are handing your present over to your past. The question is not, did they hurt you? The question is, will you let their hurt rule you? If you don't forgive, you give your offender free rent in your spirit. Forgiveness is eviction. It tells them, you're no longer alive here. My soul belongs to peace now. Don't miss this. When you forgive, you do not change the past, but you change your future. You cannot go back and undo the betrayal, the abandonment, the rejection, but you can choose not to let it destroy your tomorrow. Forgiveness releases the past from your grip so that you can grab hold of your destiny. Refusing to forgive is like driving with your eyes glued to the rearview mirror. You will crash because you're so focused on what's behind you that you cannot see what lies ahead. Forgiveness turns your eyes back to the road in front of you. I need to remind you, your soul is too valuable to be weighed down by anger. You are carrying too much purpose to waste it on resentment. You are called to live free, not bound. And freedom does not come when everything is perfect. Freedom comes when you make the choice to let go. Forgiveness does not excuse the offense, but it releases its power over you. That is why it is the key. Without forgiveness, you may survive, but you will never thrive. With forgiveness, you may walk out of the fire scarred, but you will walk out free. Think about this. Every moment you stay in unforgiveness, you are tethered to your pain. You become its prisoner. But forgiveness slices the rope. Forgiveness says, I will not drag this dead weight with me into my future. I will not let what broke me continue to bind me. That is when you start breathing again. That is when you feel the chains falling. That is when you taste real freedom. I know some of you are saying, but Philip, you don't know what they did to me. You don't know how deep the wound is. And you're right, I don't. But I do know this: holding on to unforgiveness does not heal the wound, it makes it deeper. Refusing to forgive is like leaving a knife in your flesh. You keep bleeding, you keep hurting, you keep growing weaker. Forgiveness is not pretending the knife was never there. No, forgiveness is pulling the knife out so the healing can finally begin. Here's another hook. Unforgiveness is a thief. It steals your laughter, it robs your peace, it hijacks your purpose. It makes you bitter when you were called to be better. It keeps you chained to yesterday when you were created for tomorrow. But forgiveness takes back what was stolen. Forgiveness restores the joy, the peace, the vision, and the life that bitterness tried to take from you. And let me press this in deeper. Forgiveness is not just about them, it's about you. Forgiveness is self-care for your soul. You think you're setting them free, but in reality, you're setting yourself free. You are choosing not to let their actions dictate your destiny. You are choosing to live unchained, unbroken, and unstoppable. That's why forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not just the person who hurt you. Your heart was not created to be a storage unit for resentment. Your soul was not designed to be a graveyard for grudges. You were built for freedom. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the prison doors. And the moment you forgive, you step out of the darkness of bitterness and into the light of peace. So I say to you today, stop letting anger own you. Stop letting bitterness rent space in your spirit. Stop letting the offense become your identity. Forgive, release, move forward, not because they deserve it, but because your future does. Not because they asked for it, but because your soul requires it. You cannot be free without forgiveness. And if freedom is what you want, forgiveness is the key that will open the lock. So many people wonder why their hearts never seem to heal, why their souls feel heavy, why peace always seems just out of reach. The truth is simple. You cannot heal what you keep feeding. You cannot overcome what you keep entertaining, and you cannot rise above what you continue to replay in your mind. Every time you feed the pain, you starve your spirit, and a starved spirit cannot fight for your future. That's why today I am telling you, stop feeding the pain, start feeding the spirit. Think about this. Every memory you replay, every betrayal you rehearse, every offense you hold on to is like adding wood to a fire that should have burned out long ago. The more you feed it, the more it consumes you. The more you focus on it, the stronger it grows. The enemy knows this, and that is why he whispers, play it again, relive it again. Keep looking at what they did. Keep replaying the rejection. Keep talking about the hurt. Because as long as you feed the pain, you keep yourself locked in the cycle of bitterness and despair. But here's the hook. You don't heal by feeding the pain, you heal by starving it. You take away its oxygen. You stop rehearsing it in your mind. You stop watering the seed of anger. You stop replaying the betrayal as if it were a movie on repeat. And instead, you start feeding your spirit with what gives life. Replace bitterness with prayer. Replace anger with worship. Replace revenge with purpose. What you feed will grow, and what you starve will die. Let me make it plain. If you keep feeding your wounds, they will never close. If you keep feeding your bitterness, it will choke your joy. If you keep feeding your pain, it will poison your peace. But if you start feeding your spirit, everything changes. Prayer nourishes your spirit. Gratitude strengthens your soul. Praise lifts your perspective. The Word of God plants seeds of hope that pain cannot uproot. Your healing will never come from replaying the pain. It will come from renewing your spirit. Some of you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is replay the offense. You go to bed at night and the last thing on your mind is the wound. And then you wonder why you feel drained, empty, and heavy. It's because your diet is pain. Your soul has been eating bitterness, resentment, anger, and unforgiveness day after day. And whatever you eat, you become. If you keep eating pain, you will live in pain. But if you start feeding your spirit, you will begin to live in power. Don't miss this. You are not powerless. You get to choose your diet. You decide whether your soul eats poison or life. If you want strength, feed your spirit. If you want peace, feed your spirit. If you want healing, feed your spirit. Stop giving your energy to what broke you and start giving it to what builds you. Your future does not depend on how much pain you rehearse. It depends on how much spirit you feed. And let me tell you something powerful. When you starve the pain, it will scream at first. It will try to get your attention. It will try to convince you to feed it again. That's why some of you feel the urge to replay the offense when you try to let it go. Pain hates to be ignored. But if you stay consistent, if you keep feeding the spirit instead of the pain, eventually the pain grows weaker and your spirit grows stronger. Here's a hook. Your focus is your fuel. Whatever you focus on grows stronger in your life. If you focus on the wound grows. If you focus on the betrayal deepens. But if you focus on the spirit, your faith grows, your hope strengthens, and your peace becomes unshakable. You cannot control what happened to you, but you can control what you feed. Stop feeding the pain. It has had enough of your energy, enough of your nights, enough of your tears. It's time to feed your spirit. Maybe you're asking, how do I feed my spirit? You feed it with truth. You feed it with faith. You feed it with gratitude when your flesh wants to complain. You feed it with worship when your pain wants to scream. You feed it with prayer when your heart wants to give up. And as you feed your spirit, something miraculous happens. You begin to heal, not because the pain vanished, but because the pain no longer controls you. Let me give you a picture. It's like a garden. If you water weeds, they will take over. If you water flowers, beauty will bloom. Your pain and your spirit are like that garden. The pain is the weeds, the spirit is the flowers. Whichever one you water will dominate your life. Feed the weeds and they will choke out the life in you. Feed the flowers and you will see beauty even in the middle of brokenness. And let me push this further. Feeding your spirit doesn't just heal you, it empowers you. Because a strong spirit can carry what a weak spirit cannot. A strong spirit can walk through betrayal without collapsing. A strong spirit can face rejection without losing identity. A strong spirit can endure loss without giving up. But that strength only comes when you choose to starve the pain and feed the spirit. You cannot walk in freedom if you are still feeding the chains. You cannot live in peace if you are still feeding the storm. You cannot rise in purpose if you are still feeding the prison. The power of your future lies in your choice. What will you feed today? Will you feed your pain or will you feed your spirit? Here's another hook. What you magnify will multiply. If you magnify your pain, it multiplies. If you magnify your bitterness, it multiplies. But if you magnify your God, His peace multiplies. If you magnify your hope, your strength multiplies. If you magnify your faith, your joy multiplies. The multiplication of your future depends on the magnification of your focus. So hear me clearly. Stop feeding what drains you. Stop feeding what breaks you. Stop feeding what poisons you. And start feeding what lifts you, strengthens you, heals you, and empowers you. The moment you shift your diet from pain to spirit, you will feel chains fall. You will feel peace rise. You will feel strength return. Because your soul was never meant to feed on pain. Your soul was meant to be nourished by spirit. Your heart is the engine of your life. It is the wellspring from which your actions, your words, your choices, and your destiny flow. If your heart is sick, your whole life will feel sick. If your heart is poisoned, your relationships will be poisoned. If your heart is broken and never guarded, your future will always leak out before you reach it. That is why guarding your heart is not just a suggestion. It is a necessity. Because your heart fuels your destiny, and whatever controls your heart controls your future. Here's the truth. Too many people give open access to their heart, and then they wonder why they are drained, discouraged, and directionless. You cannot let everybody have access to the most sacred part of who you are. Not every voice deserves a seat at the table of your spirit. Not every person should be allowed to plant seeds in your soul, because some will water your growth, but others will sow weeds of doubt, fear, and destruction. If your heart is the soil, you must be careful who you allow to plant in it. Let me give you a hook. What enters your heart will eventually shape your habits, and your habits will shape your destiny. That's why the enemy doesn't have to destroy you directly. He just has to corrupt your heart. If he can slip in bitterness, soon it becomes your identity. If he can plant fear, soon it becomes your language. If he can sow shame, soon it becomes the filter through which you see yourself. The battle for your destiny begins in the guarding of your heart. Think about it. Your heart is like a gate. If the gate is open to everything, then anything can walk in. Toxic voices can walk in. Bitterness can walk in. Temptation can walk in. And once they enter, they don't just visit, they try to take over. Guarding your heart doesn't mean you become hard or cold. It means you become wise. It means you recognize that not everything deserves access. Just like you wouldn't leave the doors of your home unlocked for a thief. You cannot leave the doors of your heart unguarded for the enemy. Some of you are exhausted not because your calling is too heavy, but because your heart has been unguarded. You let everyone's opinion live rent free in your soul. You let toxic people keep pouring poison into your spirit. You let lies sit on the throne of your identity. And now you're drained. That's why guarding your heart is not selfish. It is survival. It is choosing to protect the fuel source of your destiny so you can run the race you were called to run. Catch this. If your heart is the engine, then whatever you allow in becomes the fuel. Garbage in, garbage out. Toxicity in, toxicity out. But if you fuel your heart with faith, then faith will drive your destiny. If you fuel your heart with hope, then hope will steer your steps. If you fuel your heart with truth, then truth will guard your path. You cannot expect a destiny of strength if you fuel your heart with weakness. You cannot expect a future of clarity if you fuel your heart with confusion. What fuels your heart fuels your life. Here's another hook. The unguarded heart is the playground of the enemy. If your heart is unprotected, lies will sound like truth. If your heart is unguarded, manipulation will feel like love. If your heart is wide open without discernment, wounds will enter disguised as friends. Guarding your heart is not about being paranoid. It is about being prepared. It is about knowing that your heart is too valuable to leave vulnerable. Think of how many destinies have been destroyed, not because of lack of talent, not because of lack of opportunity, but because of a lack of guarding the heart. Leaders fall when they stop guarding their hearts. Families collapse when hearts become poisoned with resentment. Dreams die when the heart is left unprotected. Guarding your heart is the difference between finishing the race strong and collapsing halfway through. I need to tell you this. Guarding your heart means setting boundaries. Boundaries with people. Boundaries with your time. Boundaries with what you allow into your mind. Some of you are exhausted because you have built walls in the wrong places and left doors wide open in others. You put up walls against love, but left doors wide open for bitterness. You put up walls against growth, but left doors wide open for gossip. Guarding your heart means knowing what to shut out and what to let in. And don't miss this. Guarding your heart also means guarding what comes out of it. Because the words you speak, the actions you take, the love you give, all flow from the condition of your heart. If your heart is filled with anger, anger will spill out of your mouth. If your heart is filled with fear, fear will dictate your steps. But if your heart is filled with life, then life will flow into every room you walk into. Guarding your heart is not just about protecting yourself. It's about protecting your destiny's impact on others. Here's a powerful truth. The enemy cannot take your calling, but he will try to corrupt your heart so you never reach it. He will try to distract you with offense, discourage you with fear, deceive you with lies, and destroy you with bitterness. That's why guarding your heart is an act of spiritual warfare. Every time you protect your peace, you are resisting the enemy. Every time you choose hope over despair, you are guarding your destiny. Every time you say no to lies and yes to truth, you are securing your future. Don't forget this. The condition of your heart determines the clarity of your vision. If your heart is clouded with resentment, you won't see opportunity clearly. If your heart is cluttered with fear, you won't see yourself clearly. But if your heart is guarded and filled with truth, you will see the path to your destiny clearly. That's why the enemy attacks your heart, because he knows if he clouds your vision, he can derail your journey. So the question you must ask yourself is this: who and what am I allowing access to my heart? What voices am I listening to? What words am I feeding on? What habits am I cultivating? Because every one of those is either protecting your destiny or poisoning it. You cannot leave your heart unguarded and expect your destiny to remain untouched. The heart is the gateway to the future. Protect the gateway and you protect the glory that flows from it. We live in a world that tells us if you want to heal, take control, fix it yourself, figure it out, push through, be strong enough, tough enough, smart enough. But the truth is, some wounds cannot be healed by control. Some pain is too deep for human hands to repair. You cannot stitch your own soul back together with the same thread that was torn. Healing takes surrender, not control. And until you understand this, you will exhaust yourself trying to fix what only God can restore. Catch this? Control is an illusion. We think that if we hold on tighter, if we plan harder, if we strategize more, we can make the pain go away. But control is not healing, it's masking. You can bury your heartbreak under business, but it will still bleed. You can hide your wounds behind success, but they will still ache in silence. You can distract yourself with achievements, with relationships, with entertainment, but the wound doesn't close until you surrender it. And surrender is not weakness. Surrender is wisdom. Here's the hook. Healing doesn't happen when you grip tighter. Healing happens when you let go. As long as your hands are clenched around the pain, your hands are closed to the blessing. As long as you are clinging to control, you cannot receive restoration. But the moment you say, I can't fix this, God, I place it in your hands, that is when healing begins. Surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. It's choosing to trust that the one who created your heart knows how to mend it better than you ever could. Some of you are worn out because you've been carrying wounds that were never meant for you to heal alone. You've tried everything, self-help, distraction, even denial. But the pain remains because you've never surrendered it. You've kept it hidden, thinking control equals strength. But the strongest thing you can do is surrender, to admit, this is too big for me. This is too heavy for me. I cannot carry this anymore. That moment of surrender is not defeat. It is the beginning of your freedom. Don't miss this. Surrender doesn't mean you stop fighting. It means you stop fighting in your own strength. It means you stop trying to force healing and instead allow it. Think about a wound on your body. If you keep picking at it, trying to fix it, trying to speed up the process, you only make it worse. But when you clean it, cover it, and leave it alone, your body naturally begins to heal. The same is true with your soul. Stop picking at the wound. Stop controlling the process. Place it in God's hands and let the healing take its course. Here's another hook. Control is the enemy of peace, but surrender is the gateway to peace. When you try to control, anxiety rises, fear takes over. You're constantly questioning, what if this happens? What if they hurt me again? What if I never get over this? But when you surrender, the questions lose their grip because now your future isn't in your fragile hands, it's in God's eternal hands. Control wears you down, surrender lifts you up. Some of you are scared of surrender because you think it makes you vulnerable. But let me tell you, the safest place for your heart is in the hands of the one who made it. You've trusted broken people with your heart and they mishandled it. You've trusted the world with your identity and it betrayed you. But when you surrender to God, you're placing your wounds in the only hands that cannot fail. Surrender doesn't expose you, it protects you. Let me give you a picture. Imagine carrying a heavy boulder on your back. You're struggling, sweating, stumbling, and people are telling you, just keep holding it. Be strong, push through. And you do, but the weight is crushing you. Then someone stronger than you comes along and says, give it to me, I'll carry it. At that moment, you have a choice. Cling to control and keep breaking under the weight, or surrender the burden and walk free. That's what surrender looks like. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Don't forget this. Your healing is not delayed because it's impossible. It's delayed because you haven't surrendered. You've been trying to write your own prescription, but only the great physician knows the cure. You've been trying to force your own timeline, but true healing does not work on human schedules. Surrender means trusting that even if the process takes time, the outcome will be worth it. Here's another hook. You cannot heal what you won't reveal. And you cannot surrender what you keep hiding. Some of you have wounds buried so deep you don't talk about them. You don't think about them. You don't touch them. You keep them locked away, convinced that silence equals healing. But silence is not healing, it's festering. Healing comes when you bring the wound into the light and surrender it. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to understand the process. You just have to let go. And let me say this clearly. Surrender doesn't mean the pain never happened. It means the pain doesn't get to control you anymore. Surrender doesn't erase the scar, but it redeems the scar. It turns what was meant to destroy you into a testimony of survival. The scar becomes proof that you are still here, still standing, still living. That is the power of surrender. It transforms wounds into witnesses, pain into power, heartbreak into hope. Some of you have been asking, when will I heal? The answer is simple. When you surrender, healing is waiting, but your control is blocking it. Healing is available, but your fear is resisting it. The moment you release it, the moment you place it in hands greater than your own, the healing flow begins. So I ask you today, what are you holding on to that is holding you back? What wound are you gripping so tightly that your hands are too close to receive healing? What pain are you trying to control instead of surrendering? Until you let it go, you will remain bound. But the moment you surrender, the chains will fall. There is a quiet danger that few ever talk about, but many suffer from. It's the slow death of the soul in silence. You smile in public, but inside you are screaming. You keep moving, but deep down you're collapsing. You keep posting, working, laughing. But when the noise dies down, your soul feels empty. This is the silent battle that destroys people from the inside out. Not because they don't feel, but because they don't speak. Silence becomes the graveyard where dreams, hope, and faith are buried alive. And I'm here to tell you, refuse to let your soul die in silence. Here's the truth. Pain doesn't just disappear because you hide it. Darkness doesn't flee because you ignore it. A wound doesn't close because you pretend it isn't there. Silence is not strength. Silence is surrendering your soul to the very thing trying to destroy it. Don't miss this. When you silence your cry, you silence your healing. When you silence your pain, you silence your hope. The enemy doesn't just attack with tragedy, he attacks with isolation. If he can convince you to suffer in silence, he knows he can kill your soul without ever touching your body. Catch this, your soul was not designed to live in silence. Your soul was designed to speak life. Words are seeds, and silence is starvation. When you stop declaring, you stop feeding your spirit. When you stop praying, you stop breathing life into your soul. When you stop speaking faith, your soul withers under the weight of despair. That's why the Bible says life and death are in the power of the tongue. You can either declare life over your soul or dig its grave with your silence. Some of you have been walking around alive in body but dead in spirit. You have let disappointment silence you. You have let betrayal shut your mouth. You have let depression convince you that your voice doesn't matter. But hear me now. Your voice is your weapon and silence is surrender. If the enemy can't destroy you with the storm, he'll try to destroy you with your silence. That's why you must speak even when it hurts. You must declare even when you doubt. You must pray even when you don't feel like it. Silence is easy, but silence is deadly. Here's a hook. You cannot heal what you won't reveal. If you keep everything buried inside, your soul will suffocate. Healing requires expression. Healing requires release. When you open your mouth, you open the door for God's power to move. When you cry out, heaven listens. When you declare, hell trembles. Your silence may feel safe, but it's killing you slowly. Your voice may feel small, but it carries the weight of freedom. Let me remind you, Jesus himself cried out. On the cross, he didn't suffer in silence. He cried, my God, why have you forsaken me? That cry was not weakness, it was power. It was the sound of a soul refusing to die in silence. If the Son of God himself lifted his voice in his darkest hour, who are you to believe you should stay silent in yours? There is power in your cry. There is deliverance in your declaration. There is healing in your voice. Some of you are bound not because God can't set you free, but because you won't open your mouth. You keep it all inside, hoping it will fix itself. But silence never fixes. It festers. Silence never heals. It hardens. The longer you keep quiet, the deeper the wound grows. But the moment you release it, the moment you confess it, the moment you cry out, the healing begins. Silence may feel comfortable, but comfort can be a coffin. Here's another hook. You can't afford to die with your song still inside you. There's a purpose in you that needs to be spoken. There's a calling in you that needs to be declared. There's a fire in you that must be released. Don't let silence rob you of the future you were born to live. Your soul will suffocate if your mouth stays shut. Break the silence before the silence breaks you. Now let me get practical. You don't have to shout to the world, but you have to stop hiding from yourself. You have to stop lying to yourself, pretending you're fine when you're not. Sometimes the first step to healing is admitting, I'm broken, I'm hurting, I need help, and there's no shame in that. The shame is in pretending until the silence kills you. You were never meant to heal alone. You were never meant to fight alone. That's why community exists. That's why prayer exists. That's why your voice exists. Use it. Think about it. When a baby is born, the first thing doctors listen for is a cry. That cry is proof of life. It's the sound that says, I'm alive, I'm here, I'm breathing. And if the cry is missing, the doctors don't celebrate, they rush to save. Why? Because silence is dangerous. The same is true with your soul. As long as you can cry out, as long as you can pray, as long as you can declare you are still alive, the danger comes when you stop speaking, when you stop crying, when you stop fighting. Refuse to let your soul die in silence. And hear this, you don't have to have perfect words. You don't need a polished prayer or a powerful speech. Sometimes the most powerful cry is just one word, help. Sometimes the most life-changing declaration is simply, God, I need you. Sometimes your soul only needs to whisper, I won't give up. Don't underestimate the power of a small voice. It can break chains louder than your silence ever could. There is someone listening right now who feels like silence is their only option. You've been hurt so deeply that you think no one will understand. You've been betrayed so badly that you think no one will care. You've been broken so harshly that you think speaking won't change anything. But hear me, it changes everything. It may not change the past, but it changes your future. It may not erase the pain, but it opens the door for healing. Don't give silence the final word. Let your soul speak. So I challenge you today, lift your voice. Refuse to stay silent. Refuse to let your soul slip into quiet despair. Refuse to be buried under unspoken pain. Refuse to let your silence kill your spirit. Cry if you need to. Pray even if it feels weak. Declare even if it feels small. Because every sound you make pushes back the darkness. Every word you release feeds your soul. And every time you refuse silence, you choose life over death.